Thousands of retirees are losing money, property, and years of savings because they never filed a few simple documents. The worst part? Most people do not realize the danger until someone else already has a claim on their home. Most retirees spend decades working toward one major goal: owning a home outright. After years of mortgage payments, refinancing decisions, rising property taxes, and economic uncertainty, finally holding a free and clear property feels like security. It feels like the hard part is over. But for many homeowners over 60, the moment the mortgage disappears is actually when new risks quietly begin. A paid-off home stands out in public records. Property ownership records are searchable in most counties across the United States, and anyone can often see whether a lender still has a claim attached to the house. That matters because scammers, aggressive debt collectors, and fraudulent investors specifically search for homes with large amounts of equity and no active mortgage lender involved. Most retirees never think about this because the house feels protected simply because it is owned outright. But ownership and protection are not the same thing. A mortgage company monitors paperwork connected to a financed property because the lender has money at stake. Once the mortgage is gone, that extra layer of oversight disappears. That is why experts in estate planning and property law constantly warn retirees not to focus only on paying off the house. They also need to focus on protecting the ownership records, protecting home equity, and protecting the transfer process for future family members. A retired teacher in Clark County became part of a widely discussed property fraud case after forged paperwork connected to the property was reportedly filed through local recording systems. Situations like this are rare compared to normal homeownership, but they reveal how vulnerable homeowners can become when they assume nobody would ever target a paid-off property. The difficult part is that many retirees never hear about protective tools until after problems appear. County offices usually do not call homeowners and explain available fraud alerts. Title companies rarely contact past clients years later to discuss updated coverage. Many families never review trusts, tax exemptions, or ownership documents after retirement begins. That silence creates a dangerous gap in awareness, especially for retirees living on fixed income who cannot afford expensive legal disputes or sudden financial complications. The homestead protection. Many homeowners never file. One of the most overlooked protections available to homeowners in many states involves homestead laws. The details vary significantly depending on where someone lives, but the basic idea is similar across many parts of the country. Certain homestead protections may help shield part of a homeowner's equity from specific unsecured creditor claims. That distinction matters because many people misunderstand what homestead protections actually do. They are not designed to erase mortgage obligations. They do not prevent legitimate foreclosure actions tied to unpaid loans, and they generally do not override federal tax claims. But in many states, they can help protect portions of a primary residence from certain lawsuits or unsecured judgments. States like Florida and Texas are often discussed because they offer some of the strongest homestead protections in the country for primary residences. Other states offer smaller protection amounts or require additional filing procedures. California, Massachusetts, Nevada, and Ohio all have different rules, exemption limits, and qualifications. The problem is that most retirees never investigate whether they qualify for protections in the first place. Wealthier homeowners often discuss these issues with estate attorneys during property purchases or retirement planning meetings. Average retirees frequently assume paying the mortgage off was the only important step. That assumption can leave major gaps in protection planning later. For retirees, the risk becomes larger because financial pressure in retirement sometimes appears unexpectedly. Medical bills, lawsuits tied to accidents, or economic hardship can create situations that place home equity at risk. Even when a person has savings, legal claims and collection actions can become expensive to handle over time. That is why understanding local homestead rules matters. In some states, filing a declaration strengthens protection records tied to the property. In others, protections apply automatically, but still require confirmation through county or state offices. Retirees should never assume internet advice applies universally because homestead laws differ dramatically by state. The safest approach is checking directly with county offices, state resources, or licensed professionals familiar with local law. The bigger issue here is not only protection, it is awareness. Millions of homeowners qualify for benefits and legal protections they never use simply because nobody explained the process clearly. The property fraud alert most counties rarely promote. One of the fastest growing concerns tied to homeownership is deed fraud. The reason this issue creates so much anxiety for retirees is because it sounds almost impossible until people realize how county recording systems work. In many jurisdictions, recording offices process submitted documents administratively. Recording a document does not automatically mean the county independently confirmed every signature or ownership claim beforehand. Fraudulent filings can still become part of public records until challenged or investigated later. That gap creates opportunities for scammers looking for vulnerable properties. Retirees become attractive targets because many own homes outright, live alone, or do not regularly monitor county property records online. Scammers know this. They search for free and clear homes specifically because those properties contain large amounts of available equity. What makes this even more frustrating is that many counties now offer free fraud alert programs. These systems notify homeowners when documents connected to their name or property are recorded. Alerts may include deeds, liens, ownership transfers, or other filings depending on the county system. Yet millions of homeowners have never signed up. That is the part that surprises people the most. A retiree can spend decades paying taxes on a property without ever receiving a clear notice explaining these free alert programs. Meanwhile, signing up often takes only a few minutes online. Early notification matters because speed changes outcomes. Catching suspicious activity quickly allows homeowners to contact county officials, attorneys, or title companies before problems grow larger. Waiting weeks or months can make situations dramatically harder to resolve. And honestly, many retirees still operate with an older mindset around paperwork. They assume official records cannot easily be manipulated because government systems sound secure by default. But digital access to property information changed the landscape completely. Public records became easier to search, which also made targeting easier. This is why more financial professionals now recommend property monitoring as part of retirement protection planning, instead of treating it as an obscure legal issue. If you are finding this information useful so far, subscribe to the channel because most retirees are never taught these financial protection strategies in a simple way. Why? IRS problems become more common after retirement. Many retirees believe taxes become simpler once regular employment ends. In reality, retirement often introduces new tax complications that people never expected. Social Security benefits, retirement account withdrawals, required minimum distributions, investment sales, pensions, and Roth conversions can all affect taxable income differently. A retiree who handled taxes comfortably for decades may suddenly face confusion once retirement income starts coming from multiple sources. This matters because unpaid federal taxes can eventually lead to federal tax liens. A federal tax lien is a legal claim against property tied to unpaid tax obligations. Once filed, the lien becomes public record and can affect refinancing, property sales, and other financial transactions involving the home. The IRS has broad collection authority compared to ordinary creditors. That is why retirees should never assume state-level protections automatically block federal tax actions. What often creates problems is not deliberate tax avoidance. In many retirement situations, confusion creates the issue instead. A retiree might underestimate taxes tied to retirement account withdrawals or fail to adjust withholding after changes in income. Others delay opening IRS notices because the letters create anxiety. Unfortunately, delaying communication almost always makes situations worse. The IRS generally offers more options to taxpayers who respond early. Installment agreements and payment plans may prevent escalation when handled promptly. Ignoring notices removes flexibility and increases pressure later. This is also why retirees should review tax planning annually instead of assuming old strategies still work. Retirement changes income timing, deduction patterns, and reporting obligations. Small mistakes repeated over several years can grow into significant tax balances. The key point here is not fear, it is awareness. Retirees who stay organized with taxes protect far more than bank accounts. They protect home equity, property flexibility, and long-term financial stability. The title insurance question, most homeowners never ask. Most homeowners remember buying title insurance during closing because it appeared inside a massive stack of paperwork. What many people do not remember is what type of policy they actually purchased. That matters because standard title insurance and enhanced title insurance often provide different levels of protection. A standard owner's title policy primarily focuses on defects tied to the property before purchase. This can include hidden liens, ownership disputes, recording errors, or forged documents connected to previous transactions before closing occurred. Enhanced policies, where available, may provide broader protections depending on the insurer and state. Some policies include additional coverage related to future forgery risks, certain post-closing issues, or legal expenses tied to defending ownership claims. The important point is not that every homeowner suddenly needs to purchase upgraded coverage immediately. The important point is that retirees should actually understand what protection they already have instead of assuming every title policy works the same way forever. Legal disputes tied to property ownership can become extremely expensive even before reaching court decisions. Filing costs, document research, attorney fees, and administrative expenses accumulate quickly. That is why reviewing coverage before problems appear matters far more than scrambling for answers afterward. Retirees often spend enormous effort building equity, but very little time reviewing the systems protecting that equity. One phone call to a title company can clarify whether the existing policy remains adequate for current concerns. Even understanding the difference between standard and enhanced coverage already puts a homeowner ahead of most people. Why more retirees are turning to living trusts. Estate planning becomes more important during retirement because families start thinking beyond monthly finances. The focus shifts toward organization, privacy, and smoother transfers for future generations. That is one reason revocable living trusts have become increasingly common among retirees. A properly structured living trust may help avoid probate for assets placed inside the trust. Probate rules vary by state, but probate proceedings can sometimes become time-consuming, public, and expensive depending on estate complexity. For families, avoiding unnecessary delays during property transfers often becomes a major priority. Living trusts also help centralize estate planning documents and property management instructions. Instead of leaving family members to sort through scattered paperwork during stressful situations, trusts can create clearer administration structures. But there is a major mistake many retirees make after creating a trust. They sign the trust documents but never transfer ownership of the home into the trust itself. That mistake matters because a trust generally only controls assets properly titled into the trust name. Estate planning attorneys constantly warn clients about this issue because incomplete funding undermines the entire purpose of creating the trust in the first place. Another area where confusion appears involves creditor protection. Revocable living trusts are not magical shields against personal creditors during the creator's lifetime. Their main purpose is typically probate avoidance, management flexibility, and estate organization. That distinction matters because internet discussions often exaggerate what trusts legally accomplish. Retirees should also understand that inheritance and estate tax rules differ dramatically by state. Federal estate tax exemptions remain high compared to most household net worth levels, but some states apply separate inheritance or estate taxes at lower thresholds. This is why personalized estate planning matters instead of relying on generic advice online. Every state operates differently, and family situations vary widely. The property tax problem retirees cannot ignore. Property taxes continue long after mortgages disappear, and for retirees on fixed income, rising assessments can create serious pressure over time. The Supreme Court case, Tyler v. Hennepin County, brought national attention to tax foreclosure practices after the court ruled that keeping surplus proceeds beyond unpaid tax debt violated constitutional protections. The case sparked broader discussions about property rights and tax forfeiture systems nationwide. But the lesson for retirees is much simpler and more practical. Property tax notices should never be ignored. Many counties offer programs specifically designed to help senior homeowners reduce property tax burdens. Depending on state law, retirees may qualify for exemptions, freezes, assessment reductions, or deferral programs. Yet millions of retirees either never apply or never realize the programs exist. Some states reduce taxable value for seniors over certain ages. Others freeze annual assessment increases under qualifying conditions. Rules differ dramatically depending on location, income limits, and residency requirements. That is why retirees should contact county assessors directly instead of assuming they automatically receive every available benefit. Missing exemptions for several years can quietly cost homeowners thousands of dollars over time. And unfortunately, county offices usually do not proactively contact every eligible retiree individually. This issue becomes even more important because unpaid property taxes can eventually trigger serious collection actions depending on local law. The process varies widely by state, but ignoring notices creates unnecessary risk. Retirees who stay organized with tax deadlines, exemption renewals, and county communication usually avoid the overwhelming situations that catch others off guard later. Drop a comment with the first step you plan to check after watching this video. And if you want more retirement and financial protection content explained in a straightforward way, watch the next video, because some of the most expensive retirement mistakes are the ones people never realize are happening until much later.